Death, and Aliens, an in-depth look at horror and sci-fi TV from two friends who vaguely know what they're doing. I'm Courtney,
And I'm MK.
and how are you?
Um, I've been better. I had a rough weekend.
Oh,
But I did have like a really nice part to my weekend. So at some point last year, I feel like I talked about in the podcast, Dan and I like got a mystery like escape room box puzzle. And we thought about doing like a subscription, but like A, we don't have time, and B, we don't have money. So like we didn't. But January's mystery box this year was set in Thailand.
oh,
So we had to order it. And then Dan was like so sweet. He like put on like a video of like pictures of Thailand, like with like instrumental music in the background while we were like working on the puzzle. And it was so much fun. And it was like all of these places that like I had been to, and I was like showing him the pictures in the box, but then also like showing him the pictures on my phone and everything of like being there. But there was one time, one of the puzzles had Thai letters in it, but it was not, it was intentionally not supposed to be real letters. Like, and one of the clues in the puzzle was that Google Translate wouldn't help you. They weren't letters, except for that they actually were Thai characters flipped. Like they were mirrored, so they weren't correct, but they were Thai characters. So I was getting like pissed off, and I was like trying to do all this stuff and like literally sitting there like trying to like figure out what letter it was and is it the word supposed to be backwards? And then once I figured out what the puzzle was actually like asking me to do, I literally almost threw the paper across the room because I was so mad because I was like, the problem is that I know just enough Thai for this to not make sense to me, and not enough Thai to immediately have recognized how insanely incorrect it was. Um, and I was like, so if you were just like a random person from America who didn't know anything about the Thai language and we were like doing this puzzle, this
like
would have been such an easy puzzle. But I was so hung up on the fact that like it needed to be in Thai and it wasn't. And that's when I was like, you take this. I can't do it. But
I'm done now.
I think we solved all nine, like all 10 puzzles in like an hour and a half.
Oh wow, that's
So
fun.
it was fun. It was a good night. I had a great time. And then I laid in bed for the rest of the weekend.
I also laid in bed all of yesterday and just
Yeah.
kept canceling my plans and hoping that everyone would just follow through when I asked them to cancel, and they did. It was excellent.
Oh, that is excellent. That
It was
is
the best.
excellent.
I
I'm
had
so
a rough time. Also one of my coworkers' partners passed away this past week.
oh
And so Saturday was the memorial. And so I was supposed to go from my meeting with Jacqueline to the memorial to my other coworker's show.
yeah.
And I made it to my meeting. Then I made it to the train station where I stood for an hour and turned back around and didn't go. So I ended up in bed the rest of the time because I was like, I
Mm,
clearly cannot function enough to be in
yeah.
person. I mean, it wasn't my fault the trains weren't working. I did not break them. They broke
Right.
themselves, but
Yeah.
it didn't help when I was trying to use
Oh.
them. But yeah, so a lot of bed.
The one other thing I wanted to talk about, and I forgot to say it on the Sunday podcast that we recorded, which is fine because horror makes more sense to talk about Monica anyway. And I feel bad
Mm,
bringing this up because I'm like, your coworker's partner is not equivalent, and I'm so
right.
sorry.
It's, you
But
know,
for those of you who have been listening to the podcast since the beginning and remember when Monica was on the podcast, you will also remember that our very first guest host, her little rat dog Boo, who was in every episode of the first 70 episodes of this podcast.
mhm.
Unfortunately, we lost Boo this week. He passed away. He was old and ratty and cranky and also the best. And
Yeah.
so we're thinking about Monica this week.
Mhm.
Sweet Boo.
Yeah. So a lot of
But
sad times this week.
that does also, I was gonna, should I wait? Should I not? I don't know.
No, wait. No, no,
What?
no, no, no,
No, now that you know
no.
what I'm talking about, you're like, no, don't
Yeah,
say it. Don't say
no.
anything. Okay.
No, it's a surprise. Stop, don't ruin the surprise.
Don't ruin surprises. Okay.
Um, but because there's been so much sadness and rough things this week, I finally pulled out my House of Leaves book again that I
Oh,
reboxed and
good.
accidentally threw my other one out. I still
Good.
don't know what this book is about. One day I will read it. So I just keep putting it beside me
Yeah.
and you can see it in the background in the hopes that I will read it.
Perfect.
Because I really want to I'm just trying to escape into all of my horror things.
Mhm.
And
Yeah.
speaking of, I can't get through a week without talking about Bloomhouse. So I have been keeping up with my Watching in the Dark movies, and I watched one called Uncanny Annie this week, and it's like if Jumanji was horror, basically. It's a board game that you like get called in, but like the cards are wild. Like one of them is like basically you have to do Bloody Mary, but with Annie, and then that sets her off. And then the whole game you have to like when you do a card, you put a letter down and you have to spell out Annie. So it's like great, five letters, super easy. Absolutely not. There's a poltergeist that comes in at one point. There's like a guy who looks like a grim that comes in at another point to kill people. Like everyone dies. It's, it's
I
very Bloomhousey.
hate
It's
every
great. One of my
hate
favorite in the dark ones yet.
I was gonna say I hate everything about that.
It was creepy. And I like this is probably the 13th one from this like movie series I've been watching. They're all different. Every one of them is a
Yeah.
completely different story based around a holiday. So this was Halloween.
Mm.
Um this is probably the best one that I've watched so
Okay.
far.
Okay. See, my problem is I just I don't really do like weird summoning horror kind of things
Mhm.
because I teach at an elementary school and like some days I just walk into the guidance counselor's classroom to like talk to her and the whole third grade class is playing Charlie Charlie on the floor and so like
Mm,
I have a weird thing
yeah.
about summoning.
Yeah, this is very specific to like same rules as Jumanji. So like you have to have the board game, you have to play it, but then once you play it, you have to finish it type thing. So like
Got it.
you wouldn't accidentally do it. It's like not even like a Ouija board summoning. Like
Cool.
it's even more like specific.
Cool, cool,
So
cool,
I mean,
cool.
I might would accidentally do it because it would look fun, but you know, tis what it
Yeah.
is. But if you're watching that series or need a Bloomhouse fix or just have Hulu, I highly recommend Uncanny Annie. One of my favorites from the series so far.
Very nice, very
Um,
nice.
Also highly recommend Puka because there is a deranged theme song that I can't get enough of. So it is ridiculous, but it's a deranged theme song. Puka laughs, Puka cries, Puka something, Puka dies. It's like it's insane. Also in the
I
same
was
series though.
I was just gonna say that I watched if you were looking for things to watch on Hulu, I watched Wonder today.
Is that that movie about the little boy?
Yeah.
I have not seen that one yet, but I'm
We
familiar with
like
its
we like
existence.
had like a we had like a whole school thing where like a couple of the classes read it and a couple of the older classes that didn't read it like talked about themes of it and everything and
Mhm.
then we watched it like the whole school watched it today for Spirit Week. So
Love that.
it was
Love
great
that.
because
Well, yeah. You know what else I love?
as it I'm having spiritual guidance to
It
make up for the
is.
fact that you watch things like Uncanny Annie and Puka Dies.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I
Uh-huh.
thought so. My message for you today is from one of my favorite poets, actually, E. E. Cummings.
Oh, I love
Yeah. And it takes courage to grow up and become who you really are. Your
it.
reaction is offensive. It is a
I am not in the
beautiful,
mood.
it's beautiful and
It
true,
is
and you
beautiful.
gotta face life head on, and it sucks,
I have
but
faced a
that's
lot of life this week. So
that's also
it is
valid.
beautiful. And I do love E. Cummings.
Yeah.
But today, I am not interested in facing grown upness.
Yeah, valid, honestly.
So, so instead, let's get into American Horror Story Asylum.
Things I'm not ready to face ever in my entire life.
So much joy, so much joy. It is called, if you were here last week, you probably guessed, it is called I Am Anne Frank, Part 2. Because that's how part ones and part twos work. It
Mhm.
aired. Um, oh my gosh. I have not a brain that works.
Mm.
It's December 14th of 2012.
Ugh,
And that feels like I'm
that
wrong.
feels so wrong. It aired 2 weeks. It
Hold
aired
on.
a month and a half later.
No, right? I'm not, I think I wrote down the wrong date. Let me double
I
check.
I was like, that doesn't make sense. The part one was on November 7th.
It's November 14th. Okay. I
Okay.
wrote down the wrong date, but I did look up the right date of everything else.
Okay, cool, cool,
Um,
cool.
I that's how my week's going. It was rated. Guess what it was rated?
Probably like 9.2 stars.
8.8. But like pretty high. Still pretty high.
Yeah.
The number one song is still One More Night. The number one book is still The Racketeer by John Grisham. But what do you think the number one movie is? November
November.
14th, 2012. You are starting
Um,
your junior year of college.
I was I was not a functioning human. So that first semester of college, of my junior year of college, I had only had classes on Tuesdays and Thursdays, and I was in a long distance relationship. So I was drunk, asleep, or not on campus for like 92% of the semester. Um, so I don't really remember it at all.
Oh, you would remember
Um,
this.
2000. Wow. I don't watch movies in college.
Sure, sure. It is The Twilight Saga, Breaking Dawn Part 2.
Okay. Yes. And here's why. And here's why. And here's why. Because again, I was in a long distance relationship and my piece of shit ex who was cheating on me went to see Breaking Dawn Part 2 with all of his friends in New York City without me, and I had never seen a Twilight movie without the person I was dating at the time. And since him and I had started, we had seen all of them together. And then he watched that movie without me. And then because I was so mad about it, do you know when I watched Twilight Part Breaking Dawn Part 2 for the first time?
2015.
2022. I
What? You
watched
just watched it?
I watched it with Monica when I came back from Thailand. I had refused to watch it for 10 years because I was so fucking mad that he watched it without me.
So I have to say, I'm the same. So I did watch this when it came out. I didn't see any of the others in theaters, but my mom had gotten really into Twilight right before this. And so when I was home for Thanksgiving, we had like a girls' night out and went and saw them like, or maybe it was before then. We saw the midnight viewing of it, but I don't think it was the
Yeah.
premiere. I think it was just like a midnight viewing. And because we've been watching the movies all day. But I have also similarly, I'm sure I've said this on the podcast. There's a show called Misfits that's really great. It's on Hulu. And my roommates in college, it was the three of us were the only ones who wanted to watch it. So we would stay up late when everyone went to bed. And it
Misfits,
wasn't
the
Caitlin because
like the
she would watch
British
it.
one.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah, I'm obsessed with that show. Love that show.
Great show. So the three of us, me and Kayla and John, would stay up every night after everyone went to bed. It's like midnight, 1 in the morning when we started watching every night.
Yeah.
And we watched this whole show together. And then one night while I'm at work, the two of them watched the finale without me. I still have not seen the finale to that show.
Yeah, 10 years.
And
10 years it took me to get over that.
that was probably that was probably 11 years now because it was the year after this that I lived with them. And so it's
Yeah.
been 11 years now. And
Yeah.
so I feel you. I can hold a grudge.
Mhm.
That only
Yeah.
hurts myself, but I can hold a grudge.
Right. He doesn't give a single shit.
No.
Also, didn't enjoy the movie, didn't watch it because he wanted to watch it, just watched it because that's what his friends took him to see.
Mhm.
But I took that shit so personally that I did not watch it for like a decade.
No, my ex went to the Harry Potter release night movie without me.
Fuck
And
you.
I was also at my wits' end, but I I was the one obsessed with Harry Potter, so I went with my aunt, who I went to like the book releases with.
Yeah.
So like, at least I had a partner, but he
If
still saw without me,
Dan
and then was like, "I'll take you back to it." And I was like, "Are you kidding me? No, I'm
if
never watching this
Dan
movie with
if
you."
Dan ever saw a movie that I wanted to see without me, actually no, he did once. But he was smart.
Once.
But he was smart enough to not tell me he had already seen it in the theater with Doug and David and just go to the theater with me again and then tell me afterwards that it was the second time he saw it. And I was like,
That
"Oh,
was
so you're an idiot, but you're smarter than most idiots." Got it.
right. Yeah. No, I refuse to watch this movie with him ever again. I was like, "You are not watching this movie with me, no
Yeah.
matter when it is."
Yeah.
And they also started Dexter without me when we were supposed to watch together. That was supposed to be our next show, so I've never watched Dexter. I've now watched the first season, but like,
Yeah. No.
yeah, no, I am a TV show grudge holding person,
Mm, yeah.
and I will hold it to my detriment. I
Oh yeah,
don't
no.
care.
You know who suffered because I didn't see the fifth Twilight movie?
Hmm.
Only me.
Yeah,
No one else. Sometimes Monica, because she would say things to me and I'd be like, I didn't see it, remember?
true.
But that's it.
Although it's a wild movie, so
Yeah.
detriment. Which side is that on? But you know. So on this day, a lot of bad things happened. So I'm going to give you some history flashbacks of other things that have happened on
Great.
November 14th. In 1969, Apollo 12 was launched, which was the one that was sent off for the second moon landing. Um, in 1948, Prince Charles was born.
Oh, that's
Um,
right. November 14th is his birthday. I knew that.
um, 1960 was when Ruby Bridges started school in New Orleans.
Love that.
And in 1851 is when Moby Dick was published. So
Good.
got
Great.
literary, politics, and
Beautiful.
space. What more do you
Oh,
want? So I'm here to
and
give you
Twilight.
everything you could ever imagine. Yeah, yeah. Twilight is over here. You got those things over here, and then Twilight. Um, our director is Alfonso Gomez Rejon. You may recall that name, you may not, but he directed episode 11 of season 1, which was Birth. So that's when the babies were born. And he also directed Home Invasion, which was episode number 2,
Okay.
which feels like it is episode 3 or 4, but it's not. It's number 2 because that's what I think every time I realize Home Invasion is number 2.
Cool.
It was only credited for writers is Ryan Murphy and Brad Falchuk. So the creators, our editors, Adam Penn, going strong. And our guest slash star is Brittany Oldford, who plays Alma. She is known for Dead Ringers, which I would like to not recommend that show. It just came out on Prime Video. I started it, and literally within the first 5 minutes, a woman is like pulling her menses out of the toilet. And yeah, it is. I need everyone to know they should not watch the show because I did not watch it past that. And I assume that means it's terrible. It is disturbing. I went and watched my Bloomhouse movie after that. I watched Uncanny Annie after that and was like, I can't watch this. I need to go watch my horror film. Like, I don't know what the show's about. No, I think it's a detective thing with twins. I don't know. I don't know.
No.
That is literally 5 minutes of that show. And I was like, no, no, thank
Yeah.
you.
Well, here's the thing. People need to stop putting the most fucked up shit in the first episode because you gotta get people hooked. You gotta get people hooked.
Right.
So I will tell you right now, Monica has never watched past episode 1 of Bates Motel. And we've talked.
I thought you were gonna say Black Mirror because I have not watched past the first episode of Black
No.
Mirror.
No, Bates Motel, because of the rape scene in the first episode of Bates Motel, it turned her off so much that despite the fact that she loves Psycho and loves horror movies, she could not watch the rest of the show. Now, if that scene had been 3 episodes into it and you were already invested in Norma, you could stomach it very differently than that is the first episode. And not that it's ever pleasant to watch,
Right.
but it's very different if you're invested in the characters and upset for them and not upset visually.
Yeah. I don't know these people's names.
And you're watching them touch their own period blood. Like, fuck that.
Yeah,
Mm-mm,
yeah.
mm-mm, mm-mm. Nope.
So I do not recommend this show.
I'm so
But she
sorry,
isn't.
Alma.
She is not one of the twins. I don't know what part she plays. I didn't get that far, so I didn't see her in it.
Great.
Um, she's also in the Umbrella Academy. I think she must be in one of the later seasons because she's like a third sparrow, and I don't know what that means.
Oh, okay.
Faye, Fei, Faye, and third sparrow. That's what it said about her. Do not know what that means because I just started the second season, like, and that's where I stopped. I will go back and watch it. I just got
Yeah.
distracted. She's also in Free Guy. She's known
Oh,
from
I
Free Guy, which
love
I
Free
really love that
Guy.
movie. She played the barista. So
So
not like a huge
nobody.
role, but
Yeah.
yeah. And then she's also known for playing Alma. Like those are her things. There is
Okay.
no information about this woman online.
I believe it.
Her Instagram, she was just recently at Cocktail Magique, which is a show that I want to go to in New York. I don't think she's in it. I think she was just at it. Couldn't really
Okay.
tell from her Instagram. Um, Otherwise, that's she just has random pictures of her around New York. She's from Canada and she lives in New York now.
Great.
So sorry, no more information. Um, so now it's time. Um, so we start with Sister Jude driving down the road, which we know is not a good sign from the past, so we don't know what's going to happen.
Oh,
Um,
sorry. I just looked at her thing to figure out why she looked familiar, if those were all the big things that she did. Um,
mhm.
she was in Ravenswood, which
Oh
was
yeah,
the horror spinoff of Pretty Little Liars.
I never
Uh,
saw. That's the one spinoff I didn't watch.
it was honestly really good, but again, I don't know that I trust what college me thought of
Sure.
these because in this period of 2012 when I was drunk and alone in college, I would watch it at like um midnight, 2 o'clock in the morning by myself in my dorm room and get real fucking freaked out. But it was probably not that scary.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Yeah, I like Pretty Little Liars, and I'm like one of probably two people in the world that have liked the spinoffs. So I
I
think I'd
have
like Ravenswood. I just haven't watched it yet.
I love Ravenswood, and here's the real reason I love Ravenswood. The only character from Pretty Little Liars that carried over into Ravenswood was
Mhm.
Caleb, and Caleb is the
Yeah.
best character anyway. So like
Mhm.
that's why.
Fair, fair. Yeah, I watched The Perfectionist. No one liked it but me. But they have something school now, but it's a different cast.
Mm,
And the first season came out right before the strike, and so we
right.
it's the second season is still in production. Like we've gotten requests to pitch music for it, so it's still happening.
Yeah,
I
but
just
it's
don't know
fine.
when.
Yeah, TV's kind of a
um,
weird right now between because there was
yeah.
COVID and then things came back and then there was the strike. And so like it's just been like the last two weird years of TV have been just like or not two, the last like 5 years of
Mhm.
TV have felt like a decade and with nothing happening.
Yeah, and there's talks that like musicians who work for film and TV are about to strike. So we'll see what happens. You never know. To be clear, I want everyone to get all of their rights, and if they need to strike to do that, I support it. It's just making
Oh,
TV really weird.
I'm not mad. I'm not mad at the actors or writers who were
Right.
on strike. I'm mad at the interruption in my ability to have um something to watch that is not shit reality TV.
Yeah. You want to know what you should watch if you need something that is completely not related to anything I've been watching? I've been watching After Midnight, which is the new late night game show talk show that Taylor Tomlinson is the host of.
You know what? I've heard that that's fantastic. Like
It
I
is so
Doug showed me a
chaotic.
trailer of that the other day and it was a hot mess.
I just love Taylor Tomlinson. And it's very like so I started watching her from the first day and it is clear it is day one. Like until it and like we just did like day eight. Like it is clear from 1 to 8.
Oh,
Um, but
great.
I've been watching it every day and it's
No, right now the
chef's
only things
kiss.
that are live that I'm watching is RuPaul's Drag Race,
Mhm.
season 16, I think we're on. I feel
I have
like
no idea.
And The Bachelor started last Monday, so
Right, sure. Your tennis player.
yes. Joey G.
That's the amount of things I know about him. So,
Great.
um, right. So back to the show we're watching that's been off air for 12 years.
Oh, yeah, right.
Um, we start with Sister Jude driving down the road, as I said. We don't know where she's going. We don't know what's happening. Turns out she's going to Mr. Goodman's house. And she goes in, and it turns out that she's taken Mother Superior's advice to reach out to someone. And he was also in the camps. He had the like tattoo on his arm. And so he's
Mhm.
kind of like underground fighting Nazis, it seems. We don't get like a lot of intro, but that's kind of like
But yeah, except for
what you
that, it
get in his
also kind of
research.
feels it's very confusing, like because then they weirdly have a close up of a Nazi like symbol on something on his desk, and I couldn't tell
Mhm.
if that was like a we're telling you what she's here to research, if it's we're telling you he's not who he seems. Like
Secretly.
it was just odd
Yeah.
visually.
I think he's like underground Nazi hunter. That's what I think
Yeah, that's and
because,
I think so too. And I feel like it was not a big enough character to be like,
right.
haha, secret underground Nazi character or Hunter is actually a Nazi. Like it didn't feel
Yeah.
it was one of the few times where I'm like, I disagree with the editing. I don't often
Yeah.
disagree with the editing in this show, but that was one that I was like, that close up felt misplaced.
Yeah. No, I agree. I agree. There was so much more that could have been done with that first scene. Even in that time frame, they didn't even have to add time to the scene to like do so
Yes.
much more with it. And so it was just a little strange. But
And this is not a new editor, right?
no, this is Adam Penn. He's been the editor for like the last like this season, basically.
That's odd.
Yeah.
Because I didn't feel that the story had was lacking or even the direction was lacking. I felt like the
Mhm.
way some of the things were cut together didn't
Yeah. Yeah. I
sit
felt that way at the end
right.
too. Hmm.
So there was just some weak editing choices here,
Yeah.
which is why I'm confused that it's the same guy.
Same guy. Yeah. Who knows? It was just kind of a weird episode. But yeah, and so basically she gives him a very brief, vague overview of Arden, and then he's just like, the best thing you can do is just sit tight
Yeah,
and I'll get back to you, basically.
right.
Um, and we go back to the asylum, and Anne is where we left her, holding Dr. Arden hostage, and she pushes him out into like the common area, and Sister Mary is there, and she goes off and comes back with Frank or a security guard. I never can tell if it's just a security guard or Frank because there's
Frank.
some other
And
random
yes,
ones.
there are some other ones, but that one was Frank.
Okay. I thought it was Frank, but I just never could tell. And he now has his gun on Annie. I mean, on Anne. Why I changed her name suddenly. But he has his gun on
You
Anne.
know, it's so funny because, she reminds me of Annie, the character who was randomly in Hemlock Grove season 3 that didn't make any sense.
Mm-hmm.
And so my brain has also been calling her Annie this whole time, and I couldn't figure out why until right now.
I think mine's going with Annie's got a gun.
Or
So,
Uncanny Annie. There's too many
or
Annies.
Uncanny Annie. There's so much happening in the world right now with Annies. So not a lot of Anns to go around. But then we hit the credits. I did not watch the
Yeah.
credits, so I don't know if anything happened in them. I don't know if
Um,
you did or
I
anything
watched
changed.
very, very closely because
Oh,
you said that they
yeah,
change.
they
And
do.
I was watching it. And there were a couple things that I thought there might have been like slightly more light on faces or like slightly
Hmm.
longer shots of certain scenes, but I am telling you, nothing was fucking different in these credits. Like every week, I'm staring at them, being like, I have seen all of this before. This is not new. I don't know.
Usually it is very subtle and it's a lot of lighting changes you'll see, but
I
also
don't,
like sometimes you'll see stuff that now you've seen it happen in the episode, and so it means something that it didn't mean before.
which might just be that like the references make more sense as it goes on,
Right.
but visually, I swear to God, things are not changing.
Maybe they haven't changed in the last couple weeks because I again did not watch them. I didn't even write down the word credit. I just put a star this week. Like that's how little I paid attention to the credits. Um, and so now we go to Sister Jude, who is sitting with Anne, who is tied down. And she starts asking her questions. And she's like, what did you see? What's going on? What's this? And she's like, I'm telling you, you got to go look for it. You got to go see this. He's keeping a monster, like all this stuff.
Yeah.
And we go to see Jude, who has already been through Arden's rooms and has not found anything. So Shelley is gone. And then uh so then we flash forward back to where she's talking to Anne about all this.
Mhm.
She's like, I've looked everywhere. Like, just tell me what you know. Like, basically, we're running out of time. Tell me everything.
Yeah.
And then Sister Mary bursts in because a man is there claiming to be Anne's husband and saying that he needs to see her. He's come to get his wife, whose name is Charlotte. And
Here's the thing.
he,
I know a lot of these episodes, it's hard to tell what the time frame is in them.
Mhm.
But like if your wife was missing for like a week, don't you think you would have tried a little harder to find her by now?
Right, like you would have tried harder to find your wife. And also, like, my thing is, if you think she's crazy, why are you trying to get her out of the insane asylum that's supposed to be helping her? Like, that
Because
doesn't
he's a
track.
useless piece of shit man who can't take care of the baby without her.
Well, she also can't seem to do much, but that's okay.
Well, yeah, because she's
Mhm.
fucking crazy.
Right. So he comes in and he's telling Jude about all about Charlotte. He's like, here's the thing. She's crazy, but she's my wife. We just had a baby. And he's saying that she basically
She has postpartum depression that has manifested itself in pretending to be Anne
right.
Frank.
Exactly. Because he says that it started when she read the diary while she was pregnant. And then she went and saw the stage show or the film. I think it was a stage show,
It
the
was a
play.
stage, it was the play. Yeah, it was a production
Yeah.
of the play.
And kind of lost it. He says she gave herself the tattoo and she became
Yeah.
obsessed with
And
all
that
these
everybody
camps.
that people have said in the past that she vaguely looks like Anne, and so she like has like taken this as her identity in her psychosis and
Right.
everything, which
Yeah.
is the wildest bullshit I've ever heard.
Isn't it crazy? And
I
so,
like I don't think it's true, but also even if it is true, who the fuck came up with that?
right? Oh my gosh. It's no, everything's insane. But since she's become obsessed with the camp, she's not taking care of the baby. She's not taking care of like anything because
Mhm.
she's on this hunt to like figure out what's going on with the camps and what's happened. And Dr.
Mhm.
Threston comes in and says, sounds like postpartum psychosis. And I was like, no one knows how to treat women. No one knows how women work in medicine. They didn't then, and they don't now. It's fine. Postpartum
Mhm.
depression is a real thing. And that doesn't mean you're a psychopath when you get it, but fine. And
But and here's the thing. Is that not to say sometimes postpartum depression does manifest itself in a way that is so intense that it could be considered a psychosis, and sometimes people need more help than just pushing past it.
well, and sometimes it helps like find buried diagnoses. So like people can like become bipolar after being
Yeah.
pregnant because it's like triggered this disease, like this mental
Yes.
illness that they have.
Right. And so there are other triggers. There are things where it is a psychosis because it is like a like a catatonic level of
Mm-hmm.
depression. I do not claim to be an expert. It's not like I've read every case study. Let's make that very clear. I never know what I'm talking about. But I've never heard of someone having postpartum depression so badly that they created a fantasy in which they were a secretly alive former famous dead person.
Right. Like it might trigger like a schizophrenia, so you are a different person, but probably not in this way.
the level of informational detail that has. Like that takes
Yeah.
a level of focus that you don't tend to have when you're depressed.
Right. And it wouldn't make as much sense. Like you would have the wrong information or you would have like really chaotic information. It wouldn't be that precise, you
And
know?
it wouldn't be that consistent.
Yeah. Yeah. Like you would go back and forth between your actual persona and this one.
Yeah, plus postpartum depression is way more emotional than intellectual.
Yeah. So a lot of issues here. Dr. Thread. I think it's Thredson. I keep saying Thredston. I think it's Thredson.
It's fucking asshole is what it is. Sorry.
So
I
it's
I said to
postpartum
Courtney,
psychosis.
I said to Courtney before we started recording this episode, and I'm not going to go into it until we get into those sections of this episode, but for once, I would like my predictions to fucking be wrong. That's all I want. I just want to not be right. Because every time I say somebody is shitty, they are.
And I just like to see you lose your mind and threaten to quit the podcast every other episode. So,
Bullshit.
it's fine. So, the result of all of this postpartum psychosis, all of this creation of this person that she's, may or may not be, they're going to let her go. They're like, yeah, great, go with the husband. I was like, hold on. Regardless of what you think this is or why you think this is, it's clear that it needs to be cured.
I mean,
whether it's even postpartum depression.
To be fair, she was not in a mandatory or involuntary stay in Briarcliff. She was there because she was lost in the rain without an ID and didn't know who she was, so they put her there until something else could be done. And her husband, again, I have questions about this, but her husband showed up with identification and photographic evidence that she was his wife and an explanation for her situation and the desire to take her out. Legally, they have to let her go with him because they have no reason to hold her and they're not a state-run institution.
But also, like, she was hesitant to want to leave. It wasn't like she was like gung ho.
Agreed. No, agreed.
No.
That's why, again, I have questions about the whole situation. But based on the fact that she was only ever put in there because there was no idea of who she was, and now someone came forth with proof of who she was, technically they're not wrong by being like, okay, great, you can leave now.
Yeah. My only concern is that she wasn't like 100% ready to go. And like, she
yeah,
could
but
be
again,
patient. Like,
it's a woman
it's
in
not
the
like they were
60s.
holding her against her will.
Yeah, true, but it's the woman in the 60s. She didn't have a will.
That's true. That's true. So she goes home with her husband.
Yeah.
And she's having like some weird visions about him. And it's like, are these flashback memories? Is this something else? Like, no way to know.
Everything about her situation is confusing to me right now.
And so when he gives her the photo, she seems to remember like the baby. Although I don't think she said any names. She was just like, oh, it's my baby. I see now. I'm like with you. And so it's kind of like,
she didn't. I thought she did say David.
Oh, maybe she did. I was thinking she didn't. Or I thought maybe he had said it first. I don't remember.
I don't know.
But it felt very much like leading the witness.
Sure. I don't disagree, but there did seem to be some kind of actual memory attached to this.
Some kind of recognition there for sure.
Yeah. So it's like it might not have been a healthy or happy relationship, but it didn't seem to be like a I'm telling you have to believe that I'm your husband thing. It was it was like oh, you are my husband who beats me when I don't feed him, but I think I love you.
Yeah,
like it felt the vibe. It felt yeah. I was like that was the vibe I was getting, where it was like this is not a safe relationship, but it is a relationship.
It is a relationship, yeah. Yep. How'd she get there in the middle of the night in the rain with no identity? Who's to say? Probably not the husband for sure. Um, so then Dresden is like telling Jude, he's like, it's a huge mistake. You can't let her go. And then, they get past that very quickly. And so he starts asking her about sterilizing Kit.
Yeah.
And then we go to Kit and Grace. And they're
I
in their
hated this scene.
respective
Sorry, speaking of
cells.
editing, I hated this
Yes.
scene.
I was just about to say, this did not look correct. Because they're in their respective cells, but they're trying to make it look like they're like, see, this was a very Love is Blind situation. And it
Oh,
was
it
not
was
great.
very much a like our way to express that they're still close and connected is to show
Mhm.
this weird like mind palace-y, we're touching each other, but we're
Mhm.
not touching each other thing. And it felt
Yeah.
very like dream state,
Yeah.
but like not in a good movie. Like it was
Mm-mm.
just it might have been my least
It was a
favorite
lot.
editing. It might have been my least favorite editing in the entirety of American Horror Story.
Yeah, it was so bad. It was not like cohesive at all.
No.
And
And it
yeah.
was jumpy and
And
it
like
was
there are scenes that are jumpy because they're meant to be, like the scene at the end with the lights and everything that was meant to be jumpy and that was fine, but like this was not.
no.
So
Yeah.
so we get to this scene and he asks if she's afraid and she says no. And he's like, okay, cool. And then he starts talking about how him and Alma, they always wanted kids. He's like, I really thought, this was going to be a reality for me. I guess it's not. And it's kind of sad. You feel bad for him. And then Sister Mary goes to get Kit and she's like, hey, good news. Sister Jude's changed her mind. You might be even ready in time for dinner. And he's like, what? And she's like, yeah, it's dinner time. Like, let's go. You're out of solitary. And so he's going away from solitary. And then Grace is like, great, this is wonderful. Like, goes to talk to Sister Mary. And she's like, I'm starving. I cannot wait to eat this food. And she's like, oh, no, 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 no. You're
Not
staying
you.
here. You're being sterilized. You have a procedure in the morning. She's like, this is not it.
Yeah,
And
Sister Mary's demon is kind of misogynistic, and I'm not here for it.
kind of a lot. Yeah. Yeah. Um, and then as she's leaving, there's this really bright light in the hall while Grace is sitting in her cell. And then you see, like, as the camera pans in, you see this reflection of this, like, being
Alien being
in her
thing in
eye.
her eye.
Mhm.
I'm fucking done with the aliens. I'm sorry, but I don't like it. I think it's not done well. I think it's stupid. And because this episode was so badly edited, every alien scene, because it was like deliberately
Mhm.
like weird editing, looked even worse because everything was already bad editing, and I hated everything
Yep.
about it.
Yeah, that it was. I don't know if that was the right choice for
To be honest,
this one.
I forgot that that happened until you said it, and then I got angry all over again.
It's a choice again. But then so then we follow oh nope, nope. We go to the common room. Sorry, I don't know where my notes went. We go back to the common room and it's dinner time, as we mentioned.
Yeah. Uh-huh.
And Thredson goes to Lana and she's like, we're leaving. He's like, we're leaving after dinner. Here's where you meet me. Be there or be square, basically. And she's
I
like,
didn't feel
cool,
like
cool,
there was an
cool.
O or B square. There was a you will be there.
Yeah. But
It
she's
was,
also like, absolutely, I'm ready to get out of here.
but also
And
the editing in this scene was weird too, with the pills and then the looking at her, and then you thought it was her looking at someone else, but then it wasn't. It was him looking at her. That, sorry, I just keep thinking about how much I hated the editing in this episode.
I know. I know, it's so strange. So then he goes to see Kit, who is not being sterilized, and he's like, you got to help Grace because Kit is gung ho that Thredson is the answer to everything because he's the only sane person in this whole institute. So he believes.
Yeah.
And Thredson's
Kit,
like,
I think Kit's greatest flaw is how trusting he is.
Yeah.
Because
Oh, for
because
sure.
he
For
has not
sure.
done anything wrong except for believe every fucking word that has come out of every person's mouth.
Hmm. Hmm. So Threaten starts telling him, he's like, I'll do what I can. But here's first things first. He's like, I think you need to believe what you're saying. And he's like, well, how do I do that? I don't know. Like, maybe I believe it. And he's like, no, here's the thing. If we record you and you hear yourself over and over, if you hear yourself saying it, you're going to believe it. And I was like, if that is not the biggest trap in the world, my God, kid, my God. So
You
he
poor,
does that.
stupid, naive piece of shit. Like you just fucked yourself.
Yeah. And so then he does it anyway. So then we go back to Grace, and she's in this white place, and we start seeing flashes of first Alma. It looks like someone's pregnant. There's gray creatures, and like this is still disjointed, but it didn't feel as disjointed as the cell scene.
It didn't. It was just that there were so many other weird, disjointed editing choices in this episode that I still didn't like it because I was already disconnected from that choice in editing.
Mm-hmm.
This felt less weird, because this is also similar to the way they have done the alien encounters with Kit already. So it at
Mm-hmm.
least was reminiscent of other moments in the show, which made it not as
Yeah,
weird.
weird. Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I
So
did not I did not like the all the flashing close-ups to the pregnant belly though. Like that was just
no, that is
it was like doing it once and then doing it again after you see Elma's face so you know who it's connected
mhm.
to, fine. But they did it like 5 times and
Yeah.
I was like, what is happening
It
here?
felt almost more like the credits for American Horror
Yes,
Story than a scene in
yes.
American Horror Story.
Oh, that's so
Hmm.
true. That's exactly what it
Yeah,
felt like. It was I hated it.
it was bonkers. Yeah. So then we go to Sister Jude, who is calling to tell Dr. Goodman that she's got everything wrong. Like she's now learned about this woman being like mentally unstable. So she's like, drop everything. But at the moment, so he first of all, he doesn't answer. Somebody else answers and she tells them to tell him.
Yeah.
And then Dr. Arden walks in and he has overheard her and he's like, oh, what were you wrong about it? Like, what you changed your mind about? And she's like, nothing, nothing. Like, she just kind of blows it off. And then he tells her that he knows that she was in his lab. And she's like, yeah, but I didn't find anything. I was looking for, oh, she was like, I had a tip from one of our like patients and I had to follow up on it. She was like, but I didn't find anything. So, like, it's not a big deal. But he's going to press charges anyways. And she's like, oh, because this woman's really mentally unstable, mistakenly thinking he's talking about Anne trying to like shooting him. And he's like, no, I'm going to press charges against you because you're supposed to keep track of your patients. First of all, one person cannot be accountable for all of these patients, but and also holding her accountable because she released Anne, which while I agree, she didn't seem ready to be released.
It's
Again,
not.
based on what you said, that's not anything you can do about it. If the husband comes in to request her going home,
Yeah.
it's the
Um,
60s.
Also, a couple things. One, Jude, be a better liar. Literally, you could have said anything. You could have been like, I made a mistake about how many pizzas to order. Like, you could have fucking said literally anything. One.
Mm-hmm.
Two, Dr. Arden. I understand you're a fucking shady piece of shit, creepy, creepy old man. There are so many other ways you could get this place shut down and her or her deposed without pressing charges for the one thing that probably isn't going to get her
Right,
in any trouble.
right.
Like,
Like, think smarter, not harder.
yeah, like really, who's at fault for this? The police officers who walked through the common areas of a mental institution with their weapons accessible. That feels wrong. But why are the police officers there? Because you may or may not have kidnapped and raped a woman and then also murdered other women. So stop. The circle of
Yeah.
life leads back to don't fucking do that.
Yeah. No, he's still not doing great. And he's got a lot more
Yeah.
going against him than Jude does. But also she's a woman. So, there's that. Um, and he
Yeah.
does tell her to beg, basically, which is just so demeaning. And then he is going to go call for her dismissal. So we go to
So
Arden, who's
gross.
in his office changing his bandages from being shot in the leg. And Sister Mary walks in and says she's going to help him. And she apologizes for all of her like lewd behavior from the few nights ago.
While
And
caressing his inner thigh.
right, while like being super creepy still and trying to pretend like she's much more pure, like he thought she was at the beginning. And then it's clear that she's the one who moved Shelley. And he's like, thank you
Yeah.
for taking care of her for me. And she's like, it's for us. So, all
I
right, well,
knew
what's
I
that?
knew from the second that she was the first person who saw him that she was going to move Shelley. I never once
Oh, for
doubted
sure.
that that's where that was going.
Hmm. Yeah. And immediately we
But
go to a schoolyard where there's children wandering, and we hear a child scream because turns out they have seen Shelley climbing up the steps trying to get away from being locked downstairs somewhere
so
or thrown into
gross.
the woods. Who
I
knows where
don't
she came from, but she's
I have
climbing upstairs right now.
no idea where she came from. So problematic.
So we go back to Jude and Anne because now Anne is being readmitted. And immediately Arden is like on. So he goes to her cell and starts being super creepy and threatening. And then we go back to Jude, who's talking to the husband, and it turns out that he brought her back because he has to go back to work and he doesn't really trust to leave her with the baby because she's acting weird with the baby and all
I
this stuff.
can't
And
imagine why.
right, right. And then the husband
But to be
is
okay, to the husband's credit, if he is who he says he is, which I have
yeah.
questions, but to the husband's credit, he went there. He was trying to get his wife back. Things were not good.
Mhm.
And this one doctor told him, I think that your wife has X, Y, and Z that is absolutely treatable if you keep her here. He didn't want to listen. Realized that it was not something he could do by himself, brought her back to said place, and specifically asked for that doctor. So I don't actually fault her husband for bringing her back and asking for help because that is the
Mhm.
correct thing to do.
Right.
It's just that Dr. Throdson doesn't actually work there, is actually a horrible person. And
Mhm.
if there is any validity at all to this Anne Frank story, a mental institution run by an SS butcher is not the place to bring
Right.
her. So,
And
like,
also
there's
too
a
little
lot,
too late, bud.
yeah,
Like,
a lot of problems, but was not necessarily the wrong
right.
choice.
This one instance wasn't
Right.
necessarily the wrong choice,
Correct.
following all of his other wrong choices. Um, so he's telling her he wants threads, and she's like, he doesn't work here. You can go find him, you're free, go find him. And
Yeah.
he's like, no. And then she tries to send someone off to go grab him before he leaves, and he's like, no, I'm leaving. We're fine. And him and Lana make it to the car and drive off. So there's a win, it feels like at the moment. So then the
See,
husband,
you know, there's a win, it feels like, in the moment, you say. But when he said, tell Sister Jude I don't work here, and I never really did, I said, that feels bigger than just a fuck you. I don't trust you. I want to kill you. That was how I
mhm.
interpreted
Yeah,
that.
which is fair. That's a fair interpretation.
Yeah.
Um, so we go back to the husband who's now going towards Anne's cell when he sees Dr. Arden
Which
come out with a
also,
gun.
since when do people just get to like wander around looking for their partner's cell in the institution? What the fuck is happening here?
Who knows? He's getting away with a lot of things that don't make sense. He's making a lot of choices that I don't feel like he's allowed to make.
Right? Okay. I was like, am I
And
imagining that all of this is
no,
incorrect?
no. But he sees Arden come out of her room with a gun, looks at the gun, looks at Arden, no concern. Totally like kind of writes it off. And I was like, not a big deal. You know that she
No.
shot him and that he just came out of her room with a gun. No questions. I have a
Yeah,
few.
I have more than a few.
Yeah. And like instead of again questioning anything, he just thanks him for not pressing charges.
Which, I mean, to be fair, he should be thankful that he's not pressing charges. But
Right. But there's a few more things to like maybe ask a few questions about before you get that far in.
I think I've said to be fair, but so many times in this episode because everything makes just enough sense to not make sense.
Right. Yeah. And Arden tells him that she can be newborn tonight. So we go to Thredson, who
Hate
is
that.
so this is where he's packing up Lana and Frank tries to get him to go back and he's like, absolutely not. I don't work here, never did.
Yeah.
So then we go back to Arden and he says that he's gonna do a lobotomy on Anne.
No, no,
That's
no,
a good
no, no.
idea. So we go to Jude, who is adamantly praying in her office. And then Frank comes in to tell her that Lana's missing. Jude does not care. That is not her concern. I mean, you see a brief moment of like, oh, that's not good. But then she kind of like moves on. And she starts talking about like her
I
mother.
felt so bad in this scene because it wasn't even like a this is all unrelated. It was like a I have tried so hard to care about things and people, and I just don't know if I have it in me because
Yeah,
this is what my life was and this is how I got to where I am. And like, once again, I'm going to fail. Like, it was so sad.
it was. So we learned about her mom working multiple jobs. We learned about her having a squirrel that died because she forgot to feed it. And then her mom just like tossing it away and how that emotionally like affected her.
Well, and the fact that her
And
only friend as a child was a squirrel she kept in a box and then had to feed.
yeah.
Like,
And all that to say that she's pretty much done here. And Frank tells her that it's not her fault because she never really had a chance, which is very
fucking
true.
Frank was like, in that moment, Frank was like, men never want to see a woman succeed, especially a woman as strong as you. So, like, I'm so sorry that this is how it's going to go down. And I was like, fucking hell yeah, Frank. Frank is the
Frank's
ally we
a
all
real
need.
one. Yeah. Even when he lets people get stolen for movie night, it's fine.
He was watching a good movie. I can't blame him.
That's watching the Christians get eaten. What more did you want? Um, so Jude's leaving. And at the same time, the lobotomy is happening. Husband's there, just hanging out watching. That's fine. That's not weird at all.
Nope,
And
not at
then
all.
we go to Jude, who's getting picked up at a bar. Back to her old ways, we see. And
Yep.
then we go to Thredson, whose name is Oliver, as he tells Lana. He takes her to his house and she wants to go home. And he's like, absolutely not. He's like, that's the first place they're going to look for you. So don't even try that. He's like, here's the plan. We're going to go first thing in the morning. I have an appointment. You're going to tell your whole story. You're going to win a, like, I think he said Pulitzer Prize or Nobel, one of those.
Yeah,
Probably
and
Pulitzer.
but then he also oh no, it was later when he changed it to you're gonna be the one to tell my story, right?
Right. Yeah. And
Yeah.
then, so he says all of this. He goes to grab her a glass of wine and she tries to call Lois, who is her friend, to see if she's heard from Wendy because Lana obviously hasn't. But the
Yeah.
phone doesn't work. And he tells her, he's like, no calls. And honestly, like surface level, these are all very reasonable requests because yes, you don't want her to get called and sent back before you have a chance to tell the story. You know, you don't want her like, and you never know what's going to happen. You don't know who she's going to call. Like from a
Yeah.
very separated perspective, this is the
Oh,
correct choice to
oh
make sure
no,
you get to the police station.
he's doing all of the correct things, but in the ickiest, most
Right.
off-putting way that has ever
Yeah.
existed.
And it's clear that she feels very put off by him, even though
Yeah.
she can't figure out why. And this is
Yeah.
when he says, no, we're going to go because you're the person to tell my story.
And she was like, your story?
Yeah. And he's just like, cheers. She's like, okay. And
Okay.
he offers her mints, and she's just acting like she just starts acting
Well,
weird.
no, no,
She's like,
no. Here's the thing. No, it's worse than that. It's more than that. She sits down in the chair and she looks over at the lamp and she's looking at the lampshade. And I literally immediately was like, oh, that's Ed Gein's lampshade.
yeah,
And
yeah,
then, and then, and to be fair, I guess not everyone studies serial killers as much as I do, but I immediately was like, oh, this is an Ed Gein situation. And then he was like, do you want a mint? And the bowl was clearly half of a skull. And I was like, oh, fucking shit.
so she's trying not to show signs of freaking out while also freaking out. So she has to go to the bathroom, and he's like, yeah, it's just down the way. So she goes to go to the bathroom and tries every door to see if one of them is an escape. And unfortunately, she finds a room full of like
Tanning, like
medical
skins,
equipment and
and yeah.
knives and skins. And um, we learned that everything basically is made out of human skin.
He was like, oh, you
So
found my little hobby. And she's like, yeah, make furniture.
yeah, she's trying very hard to like not let him be upset with her. So
Yeah.
we go back to Kit because of course we have to leave that there now.
Yeah.
So Kit's in the common room and he sees Grace, and she is bleeding because she has been sterilized. And he goes to talk to her, and she is
Maybe,
just
maybe
maybe.
she's supposed theoretically been sterilized,
Mhm.
but she's just had some
Sure.
kind of incredible vaginal trauma.
Yeah, could have been from the alien encounter. We can't be certain at this point.
Right.
Um, so we're going through this, and he's like, "Oh my God, are you okay? What, like, how are you doing? All this stuff." And she's traumatized.
And he's
And
like, we need a
then,
doctor. She's bleeding. Like,
yeah, but at the same time, the police come in and go to arrest him based off of the confessions on the tapes that he gave to Thredson. And Alma's, I mean, and Grace is like, he didn't do it. He didn't kill anyone. She's going over and over. And then she starts just saying, Alma's alive. I saw her. He
he's like,
didn't kill her
he's
because
like,
she's
you couldn't have
alive.
killed her if she's still alive. And he's like, I'm sorry, what?
Yeah. So then we go back to Lana, who has been dropped through a secret door and chained to the floor. And beside her is dead frozen Wendy. Um, because he kept
Yeah.
Wendy around to continue Lana's therapy, as he tells her. Um, and then he tells her that it's fine. It's everything is going to be okay. She should go kiss her frozen lips. And then he says, "Don't worry," as he puts on a mask. She has no teeth
He
because he's
said she
put
won't
teeth on the
bite. I
skin
took
mask.
her teeth.
Yeah. So we go to Jude, who's leaving this random man's apartment because she has just thrown it all away. She is done with being
Yep.
her nun self, which,
Yep.
like, fair enough. Fair enough.
Right. Honestly.
Um, and we go back to the husband who is getting home to his 50s housewife that is just there. And she's holding her baby. It's a Wonderful World is playing. I think it's a wonderful something world. I don't think that's the actual title, but it's close enough.
Yeah.
And then he is getting rid of all of the papers and all of the research she's been doing, including
Well,
like
so
all these
she's
pictures.
already started taking everything down, and she was like, "Oh,
Yeah.
I was just kind of cleaning up down here." And he's like, "Is that garbage?" He's like, "Yeah, you can get rid of it." But the stuff that's still hanging on the wall, she said, "I'll just clean this up tomorrow."
And when you zoom into the stuff that's on the wall, it's a picture of young Hans Gruber.
We're in literally right next to Hitler.
Hitler. Yeah. And that's where we end. That's the end of the episode.
So here's the thing. What this episode does not answer is, did she make up being Anne Frank, or did she actually genuinely get so involved in a psychotic break that she like believed she was Anne Frank? Answer, it doesn't fucking matter, because the memories that she had might not have been her memories, but they were based in actual legitimate research, not like psycho. So everything that we learned about Grouper from her is true.
Yeah. So that's a good way to go out. Yeah, it does leave it on a very open-ended note of, did she create this persona or did she say the truth? Who knows?
Which, again, I don't think matters.
I also don't think it matters because it comes to the same conclusion that Hans
Mm-hmm.
Gruber killed people and now is killing more people. So
Yep.
that's all you need to know. But it also doesn't answer the question of what's going on with her husband.
Yeah.
Which it
But
is
I
a question
also,
that maybe should be answered, but
maybe. I also think, honestly, if they never, even if she literally was never in the show again, if these two characters never came back for the rest of the show, I would be fine, because I could genuinely just accept the idea that he is your typical rat race man who's incapable of having a healthy relationship with
sure.
women because of the time period that he's in, and he made misguided, misogynistic decisions that hurt people because it's what he thought he was doing for his family.
Mhm.
I'm not saying that that's where it's going. I do think that there's something sketchier going on there because of all of the way that they did the flashbacks and the like feelings and everything. I 100% think that they're going to come back to this and that it is sketchier. But even if it wasn't, I would be perfectly happy with that story ending right there and that being the answer, because it still answers the, is Hans Gruber, like, is
Yes.
Arden Hans Gruber? Yes, he actually is. Like, that is
Which is
still
the important question.
the
Yeah.
more important question has been answered, confirmed.
Hmm.
However they got to it, the ends justify the means.
Right.
So I'm okay either way. If they do bring it back though and have him be involved in something, I hope it's done well. But if they don't
Yeah.
bring it back, I also would not be upset. I would only be upset if they bring him back and then it ends in a weird loose end
Yeah.
that didn't need to be brought back for.
Right. Yeah, totally fair. Because this, like, at least with the lobotomy, like, it's clear that she may never know any different anyway. So, like, this could be
Right.
their life going on for sure. Um, yeah. So who do you want to punch?
Um, obviously, fucking piece of shit Threads in, whatever goddamn Zachary Quinto sketchy ass bitch ass. As soon as he takes his glasses off, you know he's about to fucking murder people's name.
Correct. He is the correct answer, but I thought you might go with him. So
Can't imagine why.
I chose the husband because there's
Yeah,
just
it's
something about, he
still
just needs
doesn't
to be
sit
knocked
right.
around. And like,
Yeah,
even if he's telling 100% the truth and he's coming up, like, he made a lot of errors that were stupid and unnecessary. Like,
agreed.
and then he let his wife be lobotomized by a SS
Right,
doctor. Like, so, like, not top of my list.
right, 100%.
Even if it's theoretically harmless because he doesn't know what he's doing because he's just a moron, you know.
Yeah.
So who is your MVP?
I'm gonna pick somebody that might be super out of left field and might not really actually have any main character energy whatsoever.
Oh,
But
cool.
I'm going with Frank,
That's a good one. That's a good one.
because honestly, for nothing else other than the fact that the scene he had with Sister Jude and what he said to her, and the fact that he's like the only man who seems aware of the realities of the the time period that they're living in
Mhm.
without using it to his advantage. Like,
Yep.
even if I literally never see him again and he has no bearing on the plot, that moment in and of itself was like justification for not having only negative feelings towards Sister Jude. And I like
Yeah.
appreciated that.
Yeah. I think that's probably the best answer. Everyone else has got a lot going on. Whether they're bad or not, they've just got a lot going on where you're
Yeah,
just like, you didn't do anything right. Um,
correct.
but that said, because you picked Frank, I will pick Kit
Yeah.
because like while
That
he
was the
didn't
that was
do
the only
anything
main
right,
char that was the only main character who, you're right, didn't do anything right, but also didn't really do anything wrong.
right. He did what he thought was best for everyone, and the only person he really hurt was himself.
Yeah.
So like it wasn't bad, but it wasn't good. So I'm
Right.
gonna go with Kit.
Perfect.
Um, I do have a couple of pieces of trivia for you.
Love to
Um,
see it.
so Joseph Fiennes was credited in this episode, even though we don't see him at all. Um,
Right. Who was he playing
and then
again?
Monsignor.
Oh, yeah, yeah, yeah. Okay.
And then Arden's silver wolf's head cane is a
Yeah.
replica of the one carried by Barnabas Collins in Dark Shadows. Um,
Oh, hate
and
that.
I still haven't watched Dark Shadows. It's on my list. Um, and then last but not least, the world map in Sam Goodman's room, the one that we like zoom up on,
Yeah.
shows countries that did not exist in 1965. So
Love
clear that
that.
they did not get a 1965 map. They just
Great.
got a map.
Again, there's
Um,
some some
yeah,
editing and prop work that I was not happy about
could
in
have
this
been done
episode.
better.
Yeah.
Right, right, right. So, what feelings, thoughts, etc., predictions? What you got happening in your mind?
Well, the problem is we're still not even halfway done with this season,
I know.
which is
That crazy.
overwhelming because I don't understand how you drop. I mean, I get it. It's episode 5. They do this a lot. Episode 5 has a lot of
Hmm.
big, big things dropped, but I also don't know where you go from here. Um,
Yeah.
I obviously think that the whole Threads in is actually the bloody face is kind of a fucking problem. Um, I think that we're gonna have to get back to Sister Mary Eunice being possessed by a devil because, like, while I said I appreciated that they didn't like focus on that,
Hmm.
she is still doing shit that is very not correct, and somebody should probably say something about it. Um,
Yeah.
I would just really like really happy if somebody just like took a knife to Arden's throat, but that's not gonna happen, at least not anytime soon. Um,
Sure.
I'm a little sad that Sister Jude's handling everything by doing all of the things that she knows make people a bad person instead of just like fighting back against it. But like, I think her character is not supposed to be bad. She's just supposed to be weak, or
Yeah.
like then like she puts off this idea that she's a strong powerful woman, but her flaw is not that she's evil or selfish, it's that she's just too weak for to continue being the person she wants to be, and that makes me sad,
Hmm.
but it also like sympathizes me towards her,
Yeah.
which concerns me because it's only episode 5 and I'm feeling this way. So like who knows, maybe episode 8 drops and turns out she's actually the one fucking killing everybody. Like I could not tell you. This show makes me want to punch people in the face.
Yeah.
um but yeah, so I don't really know where we go from here. Like there was just so much info dump in this episode that like I don't know what comes next.
That's fair. But also like in Sister Jude's condition, what can be done? Like you have a Nazi doctor that's ready to turn you over and essentially like send you out on your own anyways and take over all of your posts. No one's listening to you. So like your position here doesn't
Yeah.
matter.
Oh no, I'm not
So like
I'm not saying that I'm not saying that she has a ton of options. I'm just
Right.
saying that rather than like fight back, she's running
Hmm.
because
Oh no, she's absolutely weak. Yeah.
I mean, and fuck, I don't know if I would have even gotten to her position in the first place, let alone out of it. So like, I'm
Yeah.
not, I'm not condemning her weakness. I'm just saying that
Hmm.
that is clearly
But
the
that's her
flaw
character.
that is her
Mhm.
character's biggest hang up.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah. Um, well, those are all interesting thoughts and ideas. I will tell you, you said you don't know where we go from here. We go backwards. We get some flashbacks that
Okay.
explain some things in the next episode.
That makes sense because we
So,
have a lot of fucking information that does not connect to anything right now. So it does in fact make sense that we would get that. I'm
yeah,
not mad
so
about
that
that.
is our little teaser
Um,
of where we're going for the next episode. And so if you have any thoughts, feelings, questions, anger, feel free to email us, deathandaliens
so
at
much,
gmail.com. You can
so
find
much
us on all
anger.
of the social media at Death and Aliens. You can find me at CE Cloud 13,
And you can follow me everywhere at EMKAY_superstar.
and we will see you on Sci-Fi Sunday.
Bye.